Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Midwest Whitetail After Hours, presented to you by Hoyt Archery. It's been a while since we've last met, guys. We're a little late to the show, but we're here nevertheless. Let's real quick start out with you guys introducing yourself. Let's start in at least my top left corner with Caleb. Why don't you introduce yourself, because you guys, there's a couple of you that are new to the show. At least I think you're new to the show from last year. I'm not sure, but anyway, regardless, why don't you all just say hello real quick.
Hey guys, Caleb. I live in Iowa. What else do I need to say for you, Jason? I don't really know.
That's all. In my opinion, that's all you need to say. Well, probably you don't incriminate yourself then, right?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Go ahead, Gavin.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Gavin. I'm a new employee to Midwest Whitetail, and I also live in Iowa, just like Caleb.
Yep, Mike Reed here, hunting in Iowa.
Yep, Owen, hunting in southern Iowa. All Iowa boys here. Jason, you're the outcast.
I am.
Right.
I'm Jason Science, your host, or I guess that's what they call it. Anyway, yeah, I hunt in Wisconsin. Well, let's kick this thing off, and why doesn't whoever wants to start out and tell us what they've been seeing, what things are like, and maybe what tactics you're employing.
Caleb, what do you think, buddy? I know you had a pretty good evening. Why don't you start it out?
Gosh, guys, you can call it good, but almost depressing. Gosh, with the past week, I've been hunting with Lee, filming Lee, but finally got some time to go out myself. And it's warmer weather right now, and from the past, I thought I might as well focus on pinch points in the timber where everything comes together. I thought that'd probably be my best bet, somewhere in the timber, and that's what I picked today. And this morning I actually filmed my top deer, call him Hog Jr. He was off in the bean field, and went probably a couple hundred yards away and went into the sanctuary part of the timber. And eventually, just to lay it out for you guys, I was sitting in the stand. It was about 4 o'clock, like you, Mike. I wanted to sit all day, but I was wanting to move the stand, and I got back in probably around 1. And with it being 75 degrees, the last deer that I expected to be walking under my stand at 4 o'clock was Hog Jr. But sure enough, I was self-filming today and was doing a pan, and I heard leaves crunching behind me. So I took a turn back, and sure enough, that deer was walking to me. It was about 40 yards away when I turned. So I had to slowly get up, get the camera on him. About this time, he's 20 yards away, and just the most beautiful lighting ever. I tried getting the camera on him, thought I was in focus. Well, got it in focus, punch record, and he worked that scrape probably for about 2 minutes at 20 yards, and couldn't grab my bow. Finally grabbed the bow after about a minute and a half, and got drawn back, looked at the camera, and what do you know it, I double punch record. And as soon as I looked back at the deer, he got out of frame, so I had to let the bow down, got out to 30 yards, and I got back on him with the camera, and he walked off into the distance, never to be seen again for the rest of the night, unfortunately. But
Camera saves another one.
yeah, it's actually kind of funny. The same exact thing happened last year with this deer. So unfortunate circumstances. He lives to see another day.
That's a rough one. Did he have any clue you were there at all?
Never had a clue, to be honest. And I was looking through the footage from last year. I called at that deer last year, and he didn't even acknowledge me. And once he got off in the distance, I had real good cover. I waited till he couldn't pinpoint where that sound was coming from. He couldn't see me in the tree. I could just see his body. So I snort wheezed at him to try and get him to come back in, because I had a perfect wind. And that deer didn't skip a beat. I mean, I don't know if he's deaf or what, but he didn't hear me. He just kept rolling on. But
Just looked like he was cruising.
it looked like, I kind of got the feeling So that deer lives 2 miles to the north. Unfortunately, I lost permission because they sold that farm this past year. So 2 years of history, dating back a couple of years ago, I've had pictures of him all October up there. And then he normally moves down to where I'm at this time of year in November. But I was kind of just got the drift that he was looking for that first doe, you know. It seemed like he was cruising. It was literally 4 o'clock, 75 degrees, middle. I mean, I got to think he was probably looking for that first doe. So I don't know. What do you guys think as far as warm days on places to sit? I feel like places where everything just pinches down and bottlenecks down is probably your best bet, not?
That's what I'm thinking too. I mean, that's what I've been trying to target, you know, these pinch points on food sources, little ditch crossings and stuff like that, you know, but the problem is when you're hunting one deer, you always got to pick that one night he's in there, you know, that's the tough part. But that's what we love about it too. We don't want it to be easy. I keep telling Devin that. I said, we don't want it easy. It's rewarding when it's tough and then you succeed, you know. We don't want it too
Right.
hard either, but we don't want it too easy.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, I think that Caleb, your question is a question that can be answered probably 10 different ways. I've made the mistake way too many times of saying, you know, it's warm out or whatever. I'm just not gonna sit, or I'm, you know, overthinking it or something like that. And I think, you know, regardless of where you're at, you can make an informed decision, certainly. But the key is to be out there, which is why I didn't say anything about you guys, Owen and Mike. You guys remember Gumby from last year, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I couldn't go out, and one of the guys that leases with me, his kid wanted to go, and they asked, you know, he asked me. We were talking about where to sit, and we've got a 10-acre cornfield that we leave unpicked on one part of the farm. And here, actually, I'll share my screen with you since I've got it ready, and I'll show you what Gumby looks like. There's
Ah,
Sam Stevenson with Gumby. You know, his dad called, and he's my lease partner in this lease, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do if Gumby shows up? I'm like, well, you got to shoot the deer, right? And later that night he called me, and I just said, you're really? Yeah. Yeah.
How
Well, he
old
didn't.
is Gumby now? He's up
Six and
there.
I mean, my best guess is 6.5. I filmed him at 3.5 or 4.5. So he's 5.5 or 6.5. I filmed him. He blew up a decoy in a field that I was hunting, and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna give that deer a couple of years and kill him. And last year I started hunting him, and this year I was hunting him sparingly, just waiting for him to show back up consistently like he'd done in the past, you know, early in the season. But he just didn't do that this year. Maybe he got smarter or whatever the case may be, but nevertheless, he read the script that night. This coming Sunday, it'll be 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And he put the hurt on him. So I'm super happy for him. I mean, you know, to be out there as a young man like that, and have kids involved in our sport and harvest an animal like that. Obviously, that's going to be a long time before he tops that deer. But congratulations to Sam.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no doubt.
it's been a crazy year for us on that lease. Unfortunately, the guy that started it or owned the property started doing some quality deer management back in '92, and you know, got a dozer, made some food plots and things like that really they weren't doing back then. And we just turned it into a beautiful property. There's 220 acres on one side of the road that Chad owns. I think there's 180 that we lease on the other side of the road. And it's a beautiful farm. And both, just oddly enough, he and his wife passed away this summer. So it's been kind of a bummer to hunt out there, but it's been like I said, it's been an odd year.
So do you have another target picked out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, whatever walks by that's big enough.
Yeah.
Actually, I had one show up last night that I think it was last night or the night before. I don't remember for sure, but I had one show up that is he's big. He looks huge from a distance, but I don't know whether that's, the camera pixelating at 40, 50 yards in the dark, or whether it's something different in a huge buck. So we'll find out.
Are you guys seeing much for rut activity up there?
Other than, I would say that they're seeking. I have not seen a whole lot of chasing out of anything mature at all. But they're definitely on the move, and I'm starting to get a few more daylight pictures. But as I alluded to, Mike, earlier, starting this new real estate business, it's been a little bit crazy and tough to get out. But I'm gonna leave here tomorrow morning at 3:30 and drive up there and hunt the day and get a suntan.
There you go. That's right. That's what
Yeah.
I know. I was talking to Ryan in the tree stand tonight about. We were sitting, just got in the sun, and I said, "Man, we need some suntan lotion or sunglasses or an umbrella or something." But as you were mentioning earlier, and to your question, Caleb, I mean, it is November, so whatever the temperature is, you just got to sort of sit out there. And I think if you can sit near water, particularly, I mean, I think your water source, could play a role depending on the area, but also just your standard rut places like good funnels. I mean, they're out cruising, they're doing what they need to do, or I think they will be anyway. To me, it's been a little bit slower than, for November 1st, and as much as I've hunted in the last 10 days, I think it's been surprisingly slow, even with the cooler weather last week, as far as, pre-rut activity and rattling in bucks or having good responses or things like that. And even today, today we hunted pretty much all day. I actually saw some seeking by young bucks, saw a nice 3-4-year-old this morning, saw a 5-year-old I have history with, a bunch of young bucks. Ended up seeing probably 12 bucks on the day. Hunted till almost 1 o'clock, got down, hung a set and switched places, and just went hunt over a little food plot. Actually, where Rye killed a couple nights ago on October 28th, and that's probably the most rut activity we've actually seen, was the night that Rye killed. We had some does and some bucks pestering does, and bucks kind of pushing each other around, and his buck came out into the food plot and tore up a tree and snort wheezed and worked its way into 20 yards. So that was a pretty awesome hunt. We were sitting for Kelsey, my number one target this year. And, basically I have quite a number of 5.5-year-old bucks that I told Rye, have at it. So he's been carrying his bow to the stand. And, anyway, that deer came in and he was able to put a good shot on him, and in that story on a buck we had some history with. But we went back to that stand tonight. Kelsey was there the very next night. So we went in there, recovered our deer, messed around, stunk the place up, and 5:30 the next day, there's Kelsey out in the food plot working the scrape post. So I was like, well, that time of year again, it's hard to scare them away, it seems like. But tonight we had deer, just does and bucks, feeding next to each other in the cut cornfield, which I just was looking at that doing, golly, it doesn't feel like November 1st, they're not even messing with each other. So it was pretty interesting to see that. And I think it's hopefully going to pick up here over the next few days.
Anybody else got anything exciting?
I don't know about exciting, but I've been seeing, it's been a little stagnant in the evenings for sure. It's been about like the wind, slow and stagnant. That last hour's been pretty good. And one thing I've been seeing, I've noticed that I'm starting to see bucks show up a mile or a mile and a half away from their home core. So they're starting to make those excursions and they're starting to show up in different places. So it gives you some chances, some hope to catch them where you normally wouldn't. But at the same time, if you're trying to target them, in their home core, that makes it tough because they might be a mile away or 2 miles away. You don't know. So it's just the nature of the beast as we start to get into November.
Yep. Did you see much? Did you feel like this pre-rut was good or exciting, or it's been kind of slow for you?
I thought it was kind of slow other than when we did have the weather. I think October is so dependent on the weather, especially like
Right.
this last 10 days. I mean, it can be phenomenal or it can be slow. And I've answered some questions like that, and they asked the team stuff. They said, would you pick the last week of October or the first week of November? I said, well, if you can tell me what the weather's going to do, I'd pick one or the other. But yeah, I think it's so dependent. If we had, all 40s, this has probably been a phenomenal week. But even
Yeah.
then, you felt like you could connect at any point. You're seeing just enough chasing and, seeking and stuff. You feel like you could connect at any point, but it's just on the cusp of breaking loose.
Yeah. I mean, I had an encounter with Kelsey on the 27th. And this is a 6.5-year-old deer that we have 4 years of history with. Encounters with him every year. And it's just the one that I decided that I'm gonna hunt this year. And anyway, he's all late summer, fall. He's been covering the entire property. The property is almost 600 acres. So I got cameras on the edges. He's leaving the property, so kind of running all over the place. But lately, he's been on like 3 cameras. He's just really the last sort of 10 days really keyed in on one section. And so I'm like, well, as long as I'm getting him over here, I'm just going to stay over here. And there's a ton of does in that area, so I think that's kind of what's keeping him there. But a few days ago, saw him in the morning with a group of does, and actually he was probably 180 yards off in the timber. And I rattled to him when I saw him walking away, and he came to the 45 yards. Just didn't quite happen, but he responded, and I was like, oh, it's nice to see you. He's one of the few bucks that I've actually rattled to the tree this year. And some years, when they're really feeling it, it seems like every time you rattle, you got at least young bucks running to the tree. Haven't seen much of that this year.
What,
That's some
Man,
great
going off of what Mike said, looking at this past week with Lee, it was dead calm. I mean, no wind whatsoever, and we were sitting looking over a lot of territory, a lot of ground, and Lee picked up the horns and rattled many times at deer this year or this past week, and we got 0 responses. I'm talking not even a little buck came in. And I thought that was really weird, especially for this time of deer. I mean, not to even have a little spike or a 2 or 3-year-old come into the horns. I mean, that's a little off compared to what I've seen in past years, but the calling has not been great so far.
I haven't heard of anyone having a whole lot of luck calling, whether it be, grunting, rattling, whatever. I actually grunted at a pretty good 8-pointer on Sunday night, and he had 0 interest whatsoever in that. And he honestly had 0 interest in any deer that were around him. That was Sunday night. Of course, we all know that can change in a moment, but that was my experience, at least Sunday night.
Gavin,
So
you're awful quiet over there, Gavin. What you up to?
Man, we've been hunting this public a lot. We went out there this evening after that big deer, pretty much honed in on him now. I've got a couple other deer on different public spots, but just obviously nothing as big as that one. So we hunted up until today. We only hunted for him one other time after that encounter. Actually got skunked that night, which was great. And then tonight we were off to a pretty slow start, and then had a couple fawns work through. It seems like I'm noticing the fawns are by themselves So I'm guessing that means those does are kind of kicking them out and starting to get ready to be receptive. I'm guessing that that's what that means, but saw a few fawns start to work towards food, and then had a spike come cruising through, and then had a really nice 3-year-old. He came to the base of our tree. Actually, it was right at last light. Nick got some good footage of him. It was a deer I've had one series of pictures of, and I thought he was more of a 4-year-old. He just looked like kind of a bigger body deer, but ended up just being a really, really pretty 3-year-old. He's a 5x5, long brows, good frame and everything. I mean, everything you'd want out of a 3-year-old. Just came to the base of our tree, could smell our ground set, and he was just kind of curious, and then walked on through the funnel we were sitting over. But no, I haven't gotten pictures of that big deer since we encountered him. I only have one camera in there, so I need to get some more out. But I don't know. I know that there's some other hunting pressure. There's some small game pressure in there. I think there's at least one other bow hunter that I've seen in there. He's up closer to the road, luckily, but other than that, yeah, I don't know if he's still living in there or not. I mean, the night that we encountered him, he was 20 yards behind my camera, and we never would have gotten him on camera. So who knows? I mean, he might just be right in there doing the exact same thing, and I'd never know. So we're going to keep hunting him, though. I think we're just going to I talked to Mike about it a little bit, and I think we're just going to kind of bounce around and try to locate him, try to get a beat on where he's at, try to put some more cameras out for sure, but just try to figure him out a little more. So
Are you seeing a
Yeah.
lot of fawns that are by themselves? That'd be
we
pretty
saw
early for that.
we saw 3 by themselves. So there was a pair of them, and then there was one by itself. We actually set up with it bedded like 50 yards away. Didn't know until we had done the opening interview, and it all of a sudden just stood up and was feeding around and then laid back down. So
Yeah, that's unusual that early. I wonder if they're orphaned or something, because usually that's more of a peak rut kind of thing. Usually in the bucks with trying to get with the doe, he chases the little one off, and then they'll be back together, after she gets bred, and he
yeah,
tends to the doe for a couple of days, then they'll get back together. So that'd be pretty early, but you never know. Some of them do come in early. So
yeah,
Were they
Yeah.
button bucks, Gavin, or
they
or no?
definitely could have. The one, and in fact, I had the thought, the first one that we saw, that there was a pair of them, and they were 100 yards off. I couldn't really see what they were, but I think that the one was a button buck.
I've
Yeah.
noticed that those does normally kick those button bucks off a little earlier than the other way around, but didn't know if that had anything to play with it. I've been seeing a lot of does with fawns yet still, but those ones that have button bucks, I've seen that they've been off by themselves the past week and a half or so.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I could ride around and on the way to or from the stand, or just heading up there, I would see in an afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there'd be a button buck standing out in the middle of a cornfield or something, looking like he had no idea what he was supposed to do, but
Yeah.
he was sure gonna do it.
Afternoon snack. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I see a lot too. That these fawns are, they're getting a little older, and so they might go off early and eat, and then later mom seems to join the destination food source, and all of a sudden the fawns are harassing her again. So, I mean, sometimes they're just separate, not necessarily because they're breeding, but they're just,
Mm-hmm.
not together. But yeah, Gavin, I hope you can get some more time in that piece and figure that deer out. One thing I think I'd be curious to see what the rest of you say, but once the rut starts really moving, we'll get all our cameras on scrapes for the pre-rut in October, and the bucks are hitting them and working scrapes, and you get all these pictures, and then the cameras will slow down quite a bit when
Yeah.
when they're focused on breeding, they're not working scrapes, and obviously one camera on a piece of property. I mean, it's funny how many times we've sat this little peninsula on the river farm, and I've got one camera on that peninsula, and how many deer walk, I mean, you would never know they were there, but so it's about obviously a new piece sitting in there, hunting the wind, but just learning, observing, that he's not too far. I doubt he's run out of there because of pressure. It's just thick, and obviously he might go. The next 2 weeks are high risk for him going for a walk. But to try to find some love. But anyway, spend some time in there.
I think we have a pretty good plan. I think just between talking to you about it and everything, and talking to some other people as well. Yeah, I think we're just going to keep bouncing around. That's the nice thing. And I told Nick this tonight, is like, we do learn quite a bit. It seems like every single sit, it's cool to just see where the deer are moving, which way they're heading. It just based on predictions, you can kind of, it's almost like running experiments. You predict which way they're going to move, which way you might see them, and then you kind of just see what happens. And it's kind of cool to just figure out a new piece from that perspective. So I've enjoyed. I've never hunted a deer this big before, but I mean, by far. So it's fun to just have that in the back of your mind, but it's also fun to just hunt a new piece, brand new, and just kind of dedicate some time to it. So
have you been able to find anything you would consider to be just an awesome funnel, Gavin, or just there isn't such a thing right there?
Yeah, in fact, that's where we were sitting over tonight. So basically, it was the edge of a field, and then we were in the timber, facing into the timber. Obviously, we could see the field behind us, so we could see a bunch in that area. But on the other side, out in front of us, about 60 yards away, there's like an old duck pond. It's dried up just because we haven't gotten much rain this year, but it has a levee that goes on the side of it and whatever, and it kind of pinches them. I mean, there's just a 50 to 60 yard strip of timber right there that's easy for them to walk and stuff, and it's in between bedding areas and everything. So, I mean, in theory, it's an awesome funnel just from the fact that almost everything's inside a bow range. We only had a couple deer do what they were supposed to do as far as go through the funnel until last light. We could hear, or after dark, as we were climbing down, we heard a bunch of deer start moving through there. And I don't know if it's just because it was warmer out and they were just moving later or whatever, but it definitely seems like it's going to be a good funnel. So that won't be the last time we sit there.
Yeah, no doubt. I bet you that's the spot you kill him. I'm going to call it mid-morning. If that's a good connector, mid-morning.
Yeah. No, I want to go out in the morning for sure. I think it'll be good out there.
Yeah, get in there. It's tough. It's a property kind of like the river bottom where it's not a it's a wetland, so it's hard to have a physical funnel. It's basically edge habitat, that funnel. Some, especially with the ponds dry, I think. But they're creatures of habit. Even if there's not water in the pond, they could walk through the pond. They tend to walk the trails they like to walk. So that spot does seem like it'll be a good spot to sit.
Yeah, and there is a lot of edge out there, and it makes it. You can just see them there where we were sitting. There's kind of along the edge of the field, there's just a wall of willows essentially, and it makes it, there's a couple trails going through them in certain spots, but it makes it hard. But where we were at, there was just a little opening in the willows. There were still some shorter ones and stuff, but a lot more open than basically the rest of the tree line. And that's where we had that 3-year-old come right down the pipe, and then we had a spike go through there. So there's just those little areas, and that's kind of what I always like to look for when I'm figuring a new spot out like that, is those little funnels that you would never be able to see on an aerial or whatever. You just have to go and figure them out through experience. So we definitely kind of realized that tonight. Like I said, I'll definitely be sitting there at least one more time, if not a few more times, but we're going to bounce around too. So
yeah, I'm excited to follow along. I hope you can catch up with them.
Yeah, we'll have this one up on the blog tonight, I think. So be able to see.
You guys got some work to do yet tonight.
Oh yeah, it never ends.
It never ends.
Me too. I gotta figure out how to get this to you. Anybody have anything else exciting?
Well, I'm just curious what Owen. We got south winds till November 9th. Owen, is what it looks like. Have you looked at that?
I haven't seen it that far out. Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew what tomorrow was. That's as far as I saw.
Yeah, you don't want to cry too much. I'm looking at that doing, oh my goodness. Anyway, yeah, we'll just sit in the tree, keep smiling because we're hunting,
Yeah.
you know,
Right on.
and yeah, that's right. Well, it's good to be back together, and I can't wait to, this is a way I tell my friends about this. It's like long distance deer camp, it's I miss deer camp. I miss sitting around talking about the hunts, and so it's really fun to get on and chat about stuff with you guys.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure.
We're gonna try and do a little bit more frequency than maybe we did last year, and we'll see once how the year goes. But the podcast will be available through all of the places that it was last year, wherever you consume your content, whether it be YouTube or Apple, iTunes. I believe we were on Amazon, and I don't know how many other sites, SoundCloud, Podbean, all that kind of stuff. So if anybody has any questions, which one of you wants the question directed at you?
Owen,
Yeah. Bring
Oh,
them. I don't
you know,
mind.
I think it'd be fun to if someone's got a question they want to send Owen, they can send it to any of us, but probably one of the guys that is working with Midwest Lifestyle, or excuse me, Midwest Whitetail on a regular basis, would be the person to get it to, and they can get it to me, and we'll ask the question to the group.
Yeah, and I think we'll try to do what we did last year a couple times. I wasn't sure that the opening one might be the most appropriate, but we'll do some maybe we're on our socials alive where they can message in, like what Max did with last year, where at the end of the podcast
Yeah.
we can answer some questions and let the group comment on them and that kind of thing. That'll be a good way to interact with folks and get their questions answered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part of it probably more than any of it. It's just fun doing the question and answer stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of times it's stuff that pertains to what you're doing, and maybe it's something you hadn't even thought of doing. So I always pick up something from one of these shows. So it was good to get the dust knocked off, and next time it'll be near perfect.
Of course.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we'll close it out for tonight. And we'll be back shortly. Sound good, guys?
Yes,
Sounds
sir.
great.
All right.
Good
Well,
luck to everybody.
Yeah. Be safe and shoot a big one.
Yeah.
All right. We're out.